Hey, P1.
Yo, P2.
You know what blows me away?
What's that?
There's a bloke out there building a house
Mm.
with his wireless going.
Yeah.
Listen to the two Pelicans.
Really?
Why would he be doing that?
Well, he must fucking like what he's hearing.
Must because he likes hearing shit, and that's exactly what you're going to get over here at the Two Pelicans podcast. If you tune in each and every week from Thursday morning, it goes live at 6 a.m. unless we have some technical difficulties, Mick.
Which does happen from time to time.
But we're going to try and keep our promise from now on. So, yet again, we want to thank all of you legends for tuning in each and every week on Thursday to listen to the Two Pelicans podcast, whether it be over on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or Patreon.
Or Trevor Hendy Surf Club.
Look at you, wow!
Welcome back to another episode of the Two Pelicans podcast. So you could have just missed that.
Loving
G'day, you Pelicans.
Here he was, he was sort of hung up on his door.
Go and have a good time there a bit later on.
Pelicans landing in 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back to the Two Pelicans podcast. I'm Joey.
I'm Mick.
And I'm Simon.
And we are the 2+1 Pelicans. And we are here to get you weapons, you legends, you Pelicans through your work week with a big smile on your dial. And Mick, we say it every week, we're here to make fishing great once again.
Mate, that's what we're actually here to do. However, I'd like to say thanks to everyone that's supported us so far. We've had people reach out that we haven't met, haven't spoke to. Obviously been pulled up down the street at the pub. It's been pretty overwhelming, really.
Very much so, mate. And yet again, the Pelicans are on tour, and we have a very special guest. We have been pumping him up for the last 5 episodes. We wouldn't tell you who he is. It's the one and only Simon Goldsmith. Mate, thank you very much.
Hey, mate, good to see you.
Mate, it's unreal to finally sit down and have a chat to you, mate. Look, let me tell the listeners, there is not many people that have seen and been involved with both sides of the industry that you have, mate. So we're absolutely dying to dive into today's chat.
Yeah. Sure. I've been around for a little while, done a few things.
Yeah.
Have a few stories along the way.
Awesome. Look, one thing I'd like to say is that for me, starting tournament fishing, you were the voice of ABT for many years. That time there, tell us your time there and what it was like.
Yeah, as I was saying, 14 years in the industry, running tournaments for ABT, and I was probably at that period where tournament fishing sort of came from its infancy.
Yes.
It was at its peak. There was lots of money, lots of interest, lots of support, lots of anglers.
Yep.
And I probably rode that wave for a fair while, and I guess it's sort of tapered off a little bit since.
Yeah.
And I guess there's a few reasons for that.
Yeah, look, we probably, after you left, obviously, we had the COVID times. So, but yeah, like just growing up, watching the interviews, how you deliver interviews with other anglers, I've always really appreciated it.
There was many things that I loved about my time at ABT. Yep. The thing that I really enjoyed the most was about providing a product.
Yeah.
Putting on a show, I suppose, to a certain degree.
Yep.
And the show being the best tournament that we could put together with the resources we had at ABT.
Yeah.
And for me, that started very much from the briefing.
Yep.
Set the tone for the tournament, what we were here to do, what our objectives were.
Yeah.
And then present you guys with a platform to go out and be the best tournament angler you could be. And, that range from having a chat 6 a.m. in the dark at a bass lake, or standing on stage where a bass boat was on offer at a grand final, Joey.
Which I'm sure we'll talk about later on. But look, I think I'm giving credit where credit is due 100%. Yep. You, hands down, like I compare you to Dave Mercer all the time. The similarities there are unreal. I go on it. You were the greatest they've ever had, and I'm not pulling away. That Joey Urquhart, he was okay.
Oh, yeah. He was a blow-in, wasn't he?
One time he even bought a shirt like Simon and wore Simon's hat to try and look like him. But look, I think the thing about you, Simon, that I refer to you back to Dave Mercer is, and you know exactly who I'm talking about here, is the stats. Like, you can say, mate, what's your name there? My name's Bob. Totally unprofessional. But we've all done it. We don't know their name. But Simon, we're like, this is Henry here. Henry is 6'3", born on the 27th of June, 93. His biggest bass is 6 kilos. Now, that is what makes a show.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I had some really good role models when I started at ABT. You know, I knew what was involved with being a tournament director, but it's not until you enter the realm and you see other people do it.
Yeah.
In my first year, 2004, I got to see Steve Morgan do it and see how he did it. And as we know, Morgan has a photographic memory.
Yeah.
He remembers everything that ABT had done since it started in '99. And for me, that was very much the benchmark.
Yeah.
You need to do this. You need to bring this knowledge. Remember the stats, remember the anglers, what
Yeah.
they've done, who they are, where they're from, who their kids are. You need that information
Yep.
to be able to tell the story. And you need that information to be able to provide the best show that you can.
Yeah, yeah, and you've done a really, really great job in doing that. I have to ask because I have to sort of say things to myself 3 or 4 times or write them down before it just sticks. Does that stuff stick easy for you?
Yeah, I'm pretty good that way.
Yeah, okay.
I have a tendency that I'll get into something and then I'll go really deep in it and I'll absorb as much
Yep.
information as I could. And to do what I did at ABT, you did it because you loved it.
Yes.
And it meant something to you.
Yes.
So remembering all that stuff, I did it because it meant so much
Yeah,
to me,
yeah.
and I loved it.
I remember that exact line, which we'll dive into it here in a minute. You told me that exact line while we were both crying, blubbering messes, which I'm sure we'll dive into here in
Yep.
a little bit. But just to dive into Morgo a little bit, we're not going to throw him under the bus because it's a top bloke, but only Steve Morgan could do what he has done, and I will say that in the fact that I don't know a bloke that's got thicker skin. Like what the diversity he's had, like you could call him a beep 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 to his face, and he'd just shrug his shoulders and walk away and not think about it ever again. Where you or me, we'd go home, I'd toss and I'd turn, I couldn't sleep. Steve, ABT as a whole, have seen diversity from a lot of levels that we know about. COVID obviously being a big one of those, and we've seen other tournaments come.
Yep.
We've seen other tournaments go.
Yep.
But ABT has still been there, and I think that's a lot. Obviously, you from what you've done in the early days, but Steve being resilient, I think is probably the right word. Not backing down. Would you agree with that, mate?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Anybody who tries to introduce something new or change the way we do things, you're always going to have people on the sidelines that will throw stones at you, and people are throwing stones at Morgo over the years. And like you say, he's got thick skin.
Yeah.
He hasn't let it deter him.
Yeah.
He hasn't wavered from what his objective was.
Yep.
Was to provide a platform in this country
Yes.
for people to scratch their tournament itch.
Yep.
And he's done that. And we should be forever grateful for what he's done.
100%. No, he is. He's a one of a kind bloke, and he's got the thickest skin on the planet. And like you said, he's bounced back time and time again. So, what do we got there next, brother?
Look, I just while we're still on that topic, what was it like being the tournament director for that many years? Obviously, there would have been some challenges, highlights.
It was one of those jobs that it was incredibly rewarding.
Yep.
But at times, fuck me, it was stressful.
Yeah.
And I always felt like a parent with 130 kids that I was sending off to school.
Yeah.
In this case, it was putting you in the boats and sending you out to do battle. I always worried about whether everybody was going to get home safe. And we always had rules and regs in place to mitigate the chance of things going wrong.
Yeah.
But sometimes things do go wrong.
Yeah, that's right.
I think we had 3 instances where anglers got ejected from boats and ended up. Thankfully, nobody has been hurt badly over the years.
Yeah.
But that was always my biggest concern.
That's right. It's like a sport, like any sport. You want everyone to be safe.
Yeah.
But when you're running it, in charge of it, I would imagine that'd be a pretty sick feeling.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah, and I always knew that I had a huge responsibility for what I did.
Yep.
And I never took that lightly.
Yeah.
The other thing that I always wanted to do was I always wanted to make sure that you guys, while you may not have liked what I've done or the decision I made, that I was fair and it was reasons.
Yeah.
Like there were instances where we had to DQ anglers for a multitude of different reasons.
Yep.
People say, was it hard to DQ anglers? I'm like, no. I make it simple. It's black and white.
That's right.
That is the rule. Was it breached?
Yeah.
Yes, it was. Decision made.
Yeah.
I don't care if you're my best friend, Joey.
Yeah.
You had 6 fish in your live well, not 5. you're DQ'd.
And
Yeah.
if it was
Story.
Bill, Bob, whoever,
Yeah.
they're DQ'd. And
Yep.
so I had some time at ABT from the tournament director point of view, where it was electrics, and then I went into the pros. And I learned a lot from Simon, and I took a lot on that board, and a lot of that wisdom he shared with me. And definitely handling situations was one thing that Simon definitely rammed home to me.
Yes.
Like, for instance, 5 minutes before the start, and you're about to call everyone numbers, and your PA shits itself. Like, don't panic, just keep calm.
Yeah.
Just, hey, guys, we might start a minute late, but we're going to get this here. I'll yell it out if I have to. We'll make this work. What you've just touched on there, that's what I found really difficult. If it was a dickhead and I had to DQ him, super, super simple.
Yep.
But if it was the nicest bloke, even if you weren't mates with him and he was the nicest bloke on earth, I know I had to make that decision.
Because it was never about the angler; it was about the action.
That's right.
Correct.
And you were addressing the action, and whether it's
Yes.
your bag is disqualified, or DQ'd from the tournament. It was about the action. It wasn't about the angler. Who the angler was irrelevant.
And as a tournament director, you need to set a precedent that this is the way we roll, and it does not change. And I will 100% back Morgo and ABT in that he has been fair with every decision ever. Like, as far as if you're DQ'd, I'm sorry, bud, you're DQ'd.
Yeah.
I'll just quickly dive into this. Steve made me do one of the hardest things I've ever had to do in my life. Not many people will know this yarn, only the people that are at this tournament. One of the last ones I run, it was at St. Clair, and as Simon would understand, there's absolutely no reception there. Tournament director's nightmare. Like, trying to upload things, you had to drive back into town, blah, blah, blah. It isn't easy, but it's a great venue, and tournaments get run there. So I have a tie for the non-boaters, right? And I was always under the impression whoever had the bag on the biggest day, on the last day, won the tournament. That's how I was under the impression. Now, if I had service...
I even still remember how to reconcile ties. There's stuff that's written in my brain that I will never forget.
And I always thought that was the way. That was my understanding, right? Now, given if I'd had reception, I would have got straight in the phone to Morgo and just confirmed my thoughts, but I didn't. And I didn't want to rely on someone else to give me the wrong answer. If I'm going to make the wrong answer and the wrong call, I want it to be on me and not on anyone else.
Yeah.
So that's what I've done. I've made a call, which unfortunately, about 4 hours later, when I start entering the results to the computer kept telling me that second place come first. I'm like, why is it doing that?
Yeah.
Because it knew that the other guy had the biggest bag for the whole weekend. So I'm panicking. So I ring Steve, and this is why Steve's great.
Yeah.
Because he's not going to help you out. I rang him and said, what do I do? And he goes, well, you need to go down there. You need to tell our mate that you fucked up, and you need to fix it.
Yep.
And he hung up. And it was as simple as that. And that's what I did.
Exactly.
I grabbed 2 cans of beer. I walked down the hill. I said, mate, I'm terribly sorry. And obviously I was quite emotional at this point, running the tournament by myself. It was a big week. And I said, look.
And a lot of personalities too.
I do.
But obviously the anglers as well.
Yes, of course. And look, this guy blew up, and he carried on a little bit. And he's like, I'm going to go home. There's no point in me fishing this next tournament. And I said, look, mate, that's on you. I'm terribly sorry.
Yeah.
I went away. I cooled down. He cooled down. About 2 hours later, I had a phone call with an apology.
Yeah.
And he said, Joey, I'm really sorry. I reacted that way. I was very excited, blah, blah, blah. And I said, look, what I'm going to do is tomorrow night at the briefing for this next tournament, I'm going to address every single person there. So they don't think you've been stripped because you cheated or anything like that. I'm going to explain it. And I did. I put my hand up. And I said, look, everyone, I fucked up. I'm terribly sorry.
Yep.
This is what's happened. Now, that is the only way to own a situation.
Absolutely.
That's the only way to sit up and face it, I guess.
Yeah.
I can't remember an exact example, but there were instances where I made incorrect decisions. And the correct decision after that is to fix the mistake and then let everybody know.
Yep.
Because ultimately, as a tournament director, you want to make the right decision.
Yeah. Well, transparency is key, right?
Absolutely.
And that's what I was doing. I was being transparent. Like, this guy hasn't done anything wrong.
Yep.
It was me that made the mistake. And I think that was very much appreciated. And it just lets everyone know what you are as a person, too.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I'm not trying to pull the wool over anyone's eyes. But that was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do.
Yeah.
I think it's funny because I actually helped out one year with yourself down at the Clarence.
Right,
and we had a little funny thing happen with the computer that day as well.
Yeah.
But you were very professional. You'd done a few P's and Q's out the back afterwards, but you got through it. And it was really good.
I remember when I had an interview with Steve Morgan for the job, and he said, "You are going to learn to do a million different things of doing this job," and he was exactly right.
Yep.
Probably the thing that I learned the best was troubleshooting problems.
Yeah.
In the early days, I used to worry about, all these things could go wrong.
Yeah.
What will I do? And then I got to the point where I was like, it doesn't matter what goes wrong. I'm confident in my ability to make it right.
Yep.
And the tournament will always go on.
Yep.
And,
And
it worked out
It's a
pretty
good
well, I
outlook.
think.
Yeah, very good outlook to it. Yeah.
And as a tournament director, if you wake up, normally as a tournament director, you go to bed early, you're eating healthy food, but things happen, you get crook, you might get the runs, you might have a bit of deli belly, whatever it is, but you still have to stand there like anyone and you have to face it and you need to just deal with it. It's just one of those things. I was crook at a couple that I did, but I just there's nothing to do with it.
The show must go on.
Yeah,
The
100%.
tournament needs a tournament director.
You've always told me the show goes on because they're paying customers of your company and you need to give them the show that they've paid for. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
So we'll move along here a little bit.
Yeah, look, I might just jump to 4. We'll leave 3 for a bit later.
We'll leave
but
that to the end, mate, yeah.
Look, obviously, you've had quite a few years with the ABT. Who was the most interesting rooster you worked with there?
What do you mean by interesting?
Quirky,
good, funny, or just a pest? It can be any of them. Yeah, choose a category. Whatever you feel comfortable
we
with.
might roll with funny.
This sounds like a really loaded question.
We're setting him up here.
And I don't know whether I'm comfortable answering this.
No, that's fine, mate.
Yeah.
No. To be honest, I would have to sit on that question for a while.
Okay.
Think about it.
We'll come back to it.
Yeah.
Because
we because back in the glory days, there was a few guys running around doing it, wasn't there?
Yeah, like you mentioned before about dealing with some pretty strong-willed customers.
Yep.
When I started the job, I wasn't a 19-year-old. I was, I think, in my early 30s or whatever. I was pretty established as an adult.
Yeah.
I was more than willing to stand my ground.
Yep.
I never felt as though an angler ran his way over me to get what he wanted.
Yeah.
I'm sure some of them tried.
Yep.
But I never let them get their way.
Mm.
No. And once you do it once, then everyone will...
The floodgate opens.
That's exactly right.
Yep.
And a bit like the point I made earlier about, making the right decision when it came to adhering to the rules.
When it counts,
Yeah.
You turn away once at, sticking to the rules, and, it's like losing trust. Once it's gone, you don't get it back.
Yeah. No, that's all right. Look,
mate,
here you go.
These days, we're going to just skip around a little bit here, but these days, why do you enjoy fishing, mate? Like fishing as a whole, we'll dive out of tournaments just for a minute. What does Simon enjoy fishing for? Like what's that one thing that you get a kick out of and why you want to get out of bed to go for a fish?
Well, it's interesting you say that, Joey. Since I've stopped working for ABT, and I'm not as knee deep in the industry as what I used to be, and I don't have as much contact with as many people as I used to.
Yeah.
Fishing doesn't feature much in my day-to-day life these
Yeah.
days.
Yeah.
And I've sort of made that decision to put it just on the back burner for the moment.
Yep.
Okay.
Having a young family, the
100%.
focus is on them.
Yeah.
And you've had a lot going. Like to be honest, that last 3 years, you've had a pretty busy time, mate.
Yeah. Going fishing and catching fish isn't a priority at the moment.
Yep.
However, it will be in the future.
Yeah, good.
Once my kids get a bit older and I've got a bit more time
Yeah.
to actually spend time away from home,
Yeah.
I will definitely go back to it.
I'm just going to run this off the tracks for a little bit. I haven't actually run this past yet, and if we don't want to talk about it, that's fine. But I think we're all about advice here as well, Like while we like to take the piss out of our mates and have fun, I think if we can give some advice
And
to
wear
those
stupid
guys,
hats on our heads.
Yeah. don't wear a hat like this.
Yeah.
No, look, to be honest, there's guys out there that are struggling, might be going through some hardships, etc. Yourself, mate, in that last 3 years, you had a bit of a thing that's happened to yourself. You had a little bit of an accident now.
Yeah. I mentioned that I don't spend as much time, while I work in the industry, I don't spend much time socially fishing.
Mm-hmm.
Since stepping away from ABT, I've sort of brought some other things into my life. I got back into bonsai, which I used to do when I was a teenager.
Very passionate.
And one of the other things that I sort of got involved with was cycling.
Don't hold that against him. He does not wear lycra. Please don't.
No, I do wear lycra.
Oh, no!
Look, I did stalk your Facebook page the other day, and I think I seen you done like 60 odd Ks in a session. Yeah.
So I've always been in endurance sports.
Yep.
I have since I was a teenager.
Yep.
I used to do half marathons, and
Yeah, right.
surf life-saving, Ironman,
Yeah,
stuff
nice.
like that. So it's something about endurance sports that for the want of a better phrase, it feeds my soul to a certain degree.
Yeah, 100%.
good.
mate.
And so cycling was something that I got into or back into.
Yeah.
And I spent a fair bit of time doing that. You alluded to something which happened 3 years ago.
Yep.
And of course, I had a cycling accident, hit a parked car,
Oh,
dislocated my jaw, broke it in 3 places, knocked a
Yeah.
whole bunch of teeth out.
yeah.
So that provided challenges on the home front. And,
Yeah,
Mm.
that's exactly where I was going to dive in. For a guy that like you are a very fit
Yep.
man. You are very active. You're a healthy bloke. You don't just sink tins like me and Mick do on the regular. You've got a young family, as you've mentioned.
Yeah.
You were in a position for a company which we'll get to, Daiwa, a pretty important role. What's some advice, like you get hit in the face for something like that? What's some advice out there? What you got you out of the bed? And we kept in touch a lot through that
Yeah.
time, just like Breaker Billy over here did.
Yeah.
What got you through that time, mate? Was there one thing that you got up of a morning and went, right, we're gonna just buckle down and do this? What was something that got you through?
Well, when I finished at ABT, and I did that for a few reasons.
Mm.
The main reason was that when I was working and living out of a suitcase, while there was one part of my life which was bringing me a lot of joy,
Mm.
there were other parts of my life that
Yeah.
I wasn't looking after as well as
Yep.
what I should have.
Yep.
One of them being at home with
Yep.
my family, the other one was with health in terms of exercising.
Yep.
So when I left ABT, I then curated my life to have things in it that brought me joy.
Yep.
Was being at home, because I'm a homebody at heart.
Yeah.
Living out of a suitcase was always
You
hard.
would have been dying to get back home,
so
and
I got home. I got to have my family around,
Yeah.
trees. I got to, my mum moved into the suburbs, so I got to spend more time with her. So I had put my life together as I wanted to live it.
Yeah.
And then, of course, when you go and have a major accident like that and end up in intensive care,
Yeah.
it reaffirmed that those changes that I had made
Yeah.
was exactly what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it was just a slight, a bit of a mishap in terms of, breaking a jaw
Yep.
and having major surgery and then ongoing treatment for a long period of time. But
Yeah.
I was happy then when it happened, where my life was,
Mm.
and I knew I wanted to keep doing what I
And
was
you're
doing.
in
Yeah,
a position
yeah.
where you could probably mentally handle it. Like, had you been on the road all the time and come straight off the back of that, you'd be like, oh, like this
Yeah.
is probably a bit much, But knowing that you can just go home at the end of the day and you got your family there, you're spending
Yeah.
time with it means a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I haven't mentioned, and I've mentioned it to you many times, Joey, is that when I said, that's it, I want to make a change and call time on ABT,
Yeah.
I was very lucky that my wife was in a position where she could step up and go back to work full time.
Okay.
And they provided me with the opportunity
To step back and
But up till then, I hadn't had that opportunity.
Yeah, and having that readjustment and the ability to do that obviously makes that transition a little bit more easier.
And
Yeah.
let's just stop it there. Let's shout out to the women. Shout out to the women and all their lives out there, because I know the three of us sitting on the couch here, both our wives work basically full time and still run a family, still run a household. And we actually had this conversation today with a podcast that'll come out in the future with some ladies involved, with women involved in the sport, is us as men get the good end of the deal.
Yeah.
It's us that get to go and play and have fun. But also, we're also at home. We're chipping in. We're doing our stuff like every good bloke will do. But shout out to them, because behind every good man is an even a better woman. So,
That's right. And one to put up with us. So
I've pushed the boundaries a bit. We've got poor old Breaker Billy's having heart palpitations there in the background. No, look, I appreciate I appreciate you for diving into that, because I'm just going to tell a quick little story. Just after the accident happened, it was about 2 or 3 months or something like that. After was on.
Oh, yeah.
Simon had his jaw heavily.
After 2 years ago.
2 years ago,
Right.
It was his jaw was very heavily, like it was sort of elastic banded together, for lack for a bit of a word.
So essentially, what happened is I hit a parked car with the point of my chin, split it down the middle, broke it there, dislocated it, and knocked out 2 teeth. So essentially, what they do is they pop your jaw back into place. They put a metal plate across here, screws in it, and then wires through your bottom teeth to hold. Essentially, my jaw went like that. So they brought it all back together. And when you saw me 2 years ago, I still had all those plates and all those wires in place.
So I hadn't seen Simon in a little while because obviously he had a bit on, and I caught up with him and I cracked a joke within the first 30 seconds, and Simon goes, "Please don't make me laugh." And,
Yeah.
and for me,
Yeah.
I was like, Simon's good, like he was cracking jokes,
Yeah.
he wasn't laughing, he was
Yeah.
cracking a joke,
Like-
and
Bit of a testament to yourself, but obviously with that accident happening, when you're able to again, you got on the bike
Yeah.
in good time, or
I had 6 weeks off the bike.
Yep.
But in that 6 weeks,
Yep.
a good mate of mine, Grayson, had loaned me a
oh
trainer,
yeah, yep,
and I had been riding under the house.
yeah, okay,
It was part of the recovery
Yep.
process, and I sort of wanted to get back on the horse.
yeah, yeah,
Well, I
totally,
didn't want to get back on the horse out on the road because I was directed not to. I
yeah,
still wanted to
need to heal,
and that first ride back, I was like, "Am I going to be a little bit traumatized?" Is it
yeah,
gonna be
yeah,
PTSD?
yeah,
But I had none of that.
yeah, great.
Yeah.
No, that's really good.
mate, I do really appreciate you diving into that. That's and I think if anyone's out there, look, we've all been through our hardships, and people can resonate with it. Like there might be someone listening right now that's going through some dramas, and I'm sure that's going to help me out. But
One thing I will mention before we sort of move on to the next topic is that, I'm 52 now.
a chicken.
As you get older, your health becomes more of a consideration.
Yeah, I'm starting to realise this. Yeah.
You've got to get your checks every year.
Yeah.
You've got to make sure you stay on top of your blood pressure and your cholesterol
Mm.
and all those things. The other thing that you need, which is incredibly important, is not only managing your physical health.
Yep.
You've also got to manage your mental health incredibly well. And that was really highlighted to me when I had the accident. And I was lucky that I had people who were close to me who would check in on me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People like yourself and, of course, Westy.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I'll-
AKA Breaker Billy.
and I'll always be grateful for you
Yeah.
guys for checking in and making sure I'm okay.
And like normally we'll probably call every 3 or 4 weeks. We'll have a chat while I'm doing some stuff in the shed.
Well, technically we play phone tag. You call me.
Oh, you play phone tag with him as well.
You call me about 3 times, and about the 4th time is when I answer.
Yeah, that's right. We do. But then we might have been checking in every week. Just go,
Yeah.
hey, and
Yeah.
like I knew it was hard if you talk, and it wouldn't be in that hour. It'd be 5 minutes, but I didn't have to say whether you were
Yeah.
okay. It was
Yeah.
just like you're sweet,
Yeah.
like. And I think that makes a big deal. And if anyone listening, if you've got a mate, whether he's busted his leg, he's not working, he's whatever it is, he might be going through his cancer treatment, whatever he's going
Yeah.
through, give him a call. Like
that's
just
right.
Take 5,
Just reach out.
if you're too busy to take 5 minutes out of your day,
Yeah.
you're an arsehole.
Yeah.
Simple as that. We'll move on.
You know,
No, you go, mate.
Sorry to interrupt. The thing that I miss most about my 14 years at ABT? It's not the early mornings. It's not the big bass. It's not the the 40 centimetre broom from Tassie or
Yeah.
the 120s from a Woonga and an all-nighter bar event. It's the people.
Yeah.
It was always about the people.
It's the camaraderie.
Totally,
Like-
totally agree with that. Yeah, totally.
And you could have DQ'd old mate, and then later on he'd come around, have a beer, and say, "Hey mate, what did you get up to
Yeah.
today?" Like everyone's mate. Yeah, we'd love a beer, thanks, bud. So we'll move into the next question. There, we'll hoon through these now. Favorite angler in the world, US, Australia, and I know who you're going to say here.
Do you?
I think I do.
Ooh, geez,
Oh.
you're putting him on the spot there.
Well, it's one of 2 people. It'll either be KVD or Ike.
Well, it's not you, Joey, is it?
Definitely not me. He's thinking about this hard.
Ooh.
It's a very important
All right.
question.
All right.
He's got it.
And I'm not just going to give you one. For somebody who is, and has been for quite some time, a huge lover of Japanese fishing tackle, and this is no order of preference,
No.
is Namiki.
Yeah.
Okay. Is a Daiwa Tragic
Yep.
to another Daiwa Tragic.
100%.
He gets on the list.
Yep.
KVD.
Yep.
He will always be the GOAT when
Yeah,
it comes
yeah.
to bass fishing
Greatest.
One of a
in the
kind.
US.
Yep.
And the other one that I'll probably say is not Ike.
Hmm.
It is Gerald Swindle.
Mm.
Yeah.
And with Gerald, it's not so much about what he's achieved with the fishing rod in his hand. It's about all the stuff that he's done
Yes.
on the periphery
Yeah.
and the effect that he has had on the industry and the people within it.
He's a great speaker.
For
Yep.
those
Great
that don't
speaker.
know, Gerald Swindle is one of the few that has been doing it as long as he has in the States and the Elites and the other series, and he's yet to hoist that big
He's
blue
never
trophy.
had a blue trophy.
But he
But-
is
but-
one of the most successful on paper ever to walk.
And that in no way takes away from his achievements.
Yeah.
And you know what? Because he's Gerald Swindle, that man could die tomorrow and not have won a trophy and still be the best person.
Mm.
I'm not going to say just angler, but as a whole, because they're running a business like that. What they are as a business, that him is phenomenal. Like
Yes.
his mantra. If you're not familiar with him, jump over on YouTube. He
Yeah.
does some really cool motivational speaking. Really dives into men's
Yeah.
mental health.
Yeah.
He is a true
Yeah.
champion.
I think the influence he's had on people cannot be understated.
Yes.
And,
Yeah.
and just to quickly dive off the back of that, he's been a very big mentor of a friend of their shows, a friend of ours, Carl.
Yeah.
Mm.
A
Yeah.
very big mentor of Carl's. And for a man like G with such a high following, big following, to take just a little Aussie under his wing,
Yep.
that's pretty good. You know, he's a good bloke.
Well, I think quality people
Yes.
find other quality
Yeah.
people.
What are you doing on the couch then?
Birds of a feather flock together, as they say. And,
Exactly
um,
right.
and you know, it's no great surprise that somebody like Gerald would
Yeah.
befriend,
Yeah.
you know, Carl.
Now, I'm going to let Michael ask this.
Oh, well, okay.
What are you-
What question are we up to?
Up to 7.
Are you afraid to ask
Up
it?
to
No, I
7.
don't want to-
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
Hey.
Is it about you?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
What was it like?
Are we going to cry?
Well, someone will. What was it like being stuck between Ebo and P2 over here at the that Bass Pro Grand Final?
Yeah.
Like, that was one of the most tensest moments from my point of view. Only because like Joe and I have always been pretty tight, and for you to be in the middle of that, calling that, and delivered it
Yep.
in such a way
Yeah.
was absolutely fantastic. Sucks for you though, Joe.
For me, it was my greatest tournament moment at
Yeah.
ABT. Like, it was the first time we'd ever had a grand final on a
River,
system.
Yeah.
yes,
We were in Joey's backyard, and Joey was very instrumental in us actually using the Richmond as a venue. You know, he was the firm favourite going in. We expected him to do well. I remember, I think the Saturday weigh-in, you walked up into the beach, and we were
The afternoon.
and
yeah.
we were just waiting for the
Yeah.
tent set up on the shore. And you looked at me and you said, "I've got a good bag here." I'm like, "Ooh, is he gonna make his move?" And you did. You brought me that big sack. We
I
dropped
went
on
from
the scale.
7th to 1st.
Yeah.
After session 1. Yeah.
And then I remember we had dinner at your place that night. We had tacos. I remember that.
You got a good memory.
And I was sitting there. This is back when, you know, the tournament director would do everything, including editing videos.
Yeah.
And we're sort of still in our infancy in those days
Yeah,
when
yeah.
it came to
Very early.
putting together videos. And there was that moment within the edit where you catch that big fish from a midwater snag from memory.
That most people would never throw a lure at.
Yeah.
And you did the now famous Joey dance.
yeah.
Legs in the air all over the boat.
Shit
So-
flying everywhere.
So pumped. And that was the fish that anchored that bag.
Yeah,
And it-
Pure emotion. Like, there was no put on
Yeah.
about it. Like, I knew, like, I've lived on that river my whole life.
yeah,
I've caught 2 50-centimetre fish in the Richmond River in my life, and one of them was in the biggest tournament of my life. It
That-
was a 51, and I'm
yeah,
like,
that's
I
big.
knew that fish could have won that tournament
Yeah.
for me, and
Yeah.
it almost did.
yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, there's moments in tournaments where an angler wins it,
Yeah.
or potentially loses it.
Yeah.
Mm.
That was one of those moments where that's where Joey may have won the grand final.
Yeah.
But it didn't quite play out that way, did it?
No, I'll quickly dive into day 2 before we get to the weigh-in.
Yeah.
So day 2, Simon finds me, and he's like, "Man, how far up this friggin' river do you want to be?" Like, I'm way up the river.
Yeah,
And he goes, off camera, he goes, "How you going?" I'm like, "Man, no, I got 4 little fish."
Yep.
And it was like 2.5 hours to go, and he's like, "Right, we'll do some live." And I never forget Simon film, and I was like, "Cut, I gotta go. Like, I can't stay. I gotta go." And so
Yeah.
like, yeah, all good.
Yep.
And I took off, and I headed down the river, and I was like, I don't have the winning bag. Within the next 2 hours, I upgraded 3 of those rats to crackers.
Yep.
And I had 1 rat in the bag. Now, Simon will agree with this. This is where the shared weight thing, I think this is a really good testament to that, how that shared weight. I had a young fella on my boat.
Yep.
And we're going back, and we have 2 minutes. 2
Mm.
minutes to go. And I know how long it takes me to get everywhere on that bloody river.
Yep.
2 minutes. And I was like, nah. I've got that one little fish. I had like a 32 fork, and everything was like high 30s, if not 40.
Yeah.
I said that 32 fork is going to cost me this tournament.
Mm.
And we're coming down the river, and I'm just about at the boat ramp. I'm nearly there. I'm like 800 meters off, and I'm like, I've got 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And I was like, hey, bud, it's shared weight. So whatever he catches counts towards my bag.
Yes. Yep.
I said, there's a hidden snag here. No one would have fished it. I'm not even going to put the electric in the water.
Mm.
You're going to throw in there and do it. So I nose the boat up to the snag. I chuck the motor in neutral, and he throws and he goes, I'm on.
Huh.
It's a 39 fork.
Oh.
And I put it in the boat. And I looked
Yep.
at him and I said, I think you've just won me the tournament.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we drive back, and I tried not to get emotional about it. And I said, do you have a boat? And he goes, nah. I said, if I win that boat, you can
This is
have
yours.
You can have it.
I like
because
it.
you just caught me the
Yes.
winning fish. Now, for the haters out there that say it's shared weight, blah, 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 he didn't know to pull up there. He didn't know where to throw.
No, that's right.
I've told him where to throw. And I could have done it, but
Yeah.
I didn't have time to do it.
Yeah.
So that is a real testament to that shared weight. But I'll let you carry on to the weigh-in.
So, of course, you guys are still out fishing. I've got to get back early because I need to do the setup. Um, your mum and dad had turned up. From memory, Prue was helping us with the scoring as well too.
Yeah, Ollie was like a baby still.
Yeah.
Yep.
And they were a bit like, so did you see Joey? I'm like, yeah, I saw him.
Yeah.
He's got fish. But I didn't know whether you had enough.
No.
I thought it's potentially close. And at this stage, Brian Everingham, of
Yep.
course, who wins the grand final, I hadn't really spoken to Brian, so I didn't know what he had in the sack.
Right.
But I knew there was a good chance there'd be somebody out there who would have got him. 'Cause
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
always somebody who
There's
gets
always
That's right.
someone- if you're catching them, someone else is catching
Yeah.
them.
Yeah. So, it was a bit of a wet sort of overcast sort of day.
Yeah.
I think it had rained at the early part of
Yep,
the weigh-in
yep,
or
yep.
thereabout.
Yep.
And of course, being a grand final, it's not a 70 boat field; it's a smaller boat field.
Mm.
And we do reverse order.
Yep.
i.e. the angler who leads first on the
Yep.
last day
Yep.
is the last angler to hit the stage. Now, were you leading as we headed out on the
I
Sunday?
was leading. I was the last person.
Where was Evo in all this? I'm just trying to remember.
He was in third place.
Third,
Hickson was
yep.
in second.
Yep.
So Hickson comes Evo comes up and dropped about 3.5 kilos on the
Yep.
scale. Catapults in obviously to the lead.
Yep.
Hickson comes up, misses out by 30 grams. Everyone's like, oh my God, 30 grams.
Yeah.
And then it left Joey.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. And of course, I used to. I think we had the bump tub on the stage that you guys would drop your fish in, and we'd
Yep.
keep them there.
Yep.
That way, I could get you over, have a bit of a chat,
Yeah.
make you stress because you don't just give a boat away like that. You've got to make the angler
You
stress and work
got to have a
for it.
climax.
So I'm sure we would have had a good chat about how the
Mm.
day played out.
At this point, I know what Debo's weighed, and I've got in my head what I'm going to win. And I've accepted I'm not going to win.
Yep.
I know.
Okay.
I've in my head got 2.5 kilos, but I've forgotten that I've upgraded at the
upgrade.
last minute. So I'm thinking,
Yes.
I've got 2.5 kilos, which I would have had.
Yep.
And that's when I roll up to Simon, and he tells me that I need 3 kilos exactly
Mm.
to win. And mate, I'll let you tell the rest of the story.
And of course, we had Anthony Duff, the official photographer.
Yep.
And he did some great work.
Yeah,
Amazing,
He's
mate.
good on the
great
camera.
work at that tournament. And the best bit that he did for the tournament was probably some of those final photos.
Yes.
And of course, that was the moment. And there's a sequence of them
Of the 3 photos of the 3 ways.
where the scales go, the fish go onto the scales, and of course they tick their way through.
Yes.
It went 3.03.
And then it came back.
It went to 3, and I went,
Nightmares about it every night.
and then it went to
I can't,
2.99.
I can't remember what the final.
It went to
final was.
2.99, and Simon looked at me, and I know that you were happy at Evo because 2 tinnies on the stage,
Yeah.
Yeah.
like in the biggest event of the year.
Yeah.
But I could see the disappointment. Like there was just that, what a fairy tale. Like
Yeah.
that would have been in the history books, the
Yeah.
little hometown local. I was 24 years old.
Yeah,
in
yeah.
the tiniest boat in the field.
Yes.
Like what a story. But
Yep.
I'll never forget that. Those photos that he took, that moment that we shared on the stage,
Yeah.
I'll never forget that.
and-
And taking absolutely nothing away from Ebo.
And
No.
there's the 3 of us in the photo.
Yes.
There's me watching.
Yes.
There's Ebo smiling.
Just priceless.
and I've got my hand on my
Absolutely
face.
priceless.
And probably the photo, while that sequence that the Duffman took was really good, there was another one a little bit after that
Mm.
that, to me, illustrates how important this was to you.
Yeah.
And it's probably a photo that you struggle to look at.
Yeah.
Was
Mm.
you off stage by yourself upset, red face, teary eyes. I'm like, that photo there tells you how much this means.
That meant, yeah.
And that's the thing. I went off stage with my fish. I didn't go to my family. I
Yeah.
literally stood at the tank. I put the fish in the tank, and I just stood there because it was respectful to respect the man that had just won the tournament.
Totally.
And I stood there until he finished his speech.
Yes.
And then that's when, like, you know,
it sort of hit.
I think my wife didn't really know what to do. She's like, do I go over?
Yeah,
Do I not? Like, what do you say? Like,
Yeah.
and I'm not angry. It was just the emotion.
That's
like,
right.
Because I'd accepted the fact that I wasn't going to win. And then to come so close.
So
it's
close,
Like,
And then
yeah.
somebody just pull it away.
And
Yeah.
Susie Melcher, as we all know, like Suze, like the toppest lady, she's just like, what's he doing standing up there by himself? But no one knew what to do. No one was
Yeah.
like, do we approach him? Do we?
Yeah.
And she comes up and she's crying and she's giving me this big hug. She's like the hometown bloke. But it was such an emotional day. But at the end of the day, that's made every little bump in the road, everything makes you the person you are today. Like, it was the most amazing tournament that I'll ever. And I didn't need to win. It's like Gerald. I didn't need to win that tournament.
No, but it changed a lot for you.
They always say they never forget who comes second. Well, let me tell you, they never forget telling me who comes second.
like it was such a big moment and such a big climax.
Yeah.
You know, I remember, we used to turn we announce the winner and then we turn around and we cross-check the scores and we come back and hand out the checks and stuff like that. And then everybody would scatter and, we'd have the fun job of having to pack everything down. I remember after handing over the last check and saying, thank you, see you next year, and walking off stage going,
yeah,
I am spent.
I was just about to say, because it was so close, especially for the grand final, you were probably a little bit pooped as well.
Oh, yeah.
And not only, like, were you my tournament director, we were, like, even then, we were very, very good friends.
Yeah.
So, like, afterwards, we sat down and you're like we chatted. Like, are you all right, man? Like, how, like, and I never forget you said to me up on stage when I went up to get me second prize, which I think was a spool of fishing line, which is pretty good second to a $60,000 boat. You said to me, what do you regret about this weekend? What went wrong that cost you? I said, absolutely nothing.
No.
I wouldn't change a thing. I didn't lose a fish.
What an experience, though.
I caught the
That's
biggest
right.
fish in my life.
Yeah.
And sometimes you can do everything perfectly right
Yeah.
and you still don't.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, it's consistency. Brian was consistent over the weekend where I had 2 good bags and 1 cracking bag.
Yeah.
But, mate, so, no, look, it was one of those moments I know we'll never, ever forget, and it's something we'll take with us.
Yeah.
for sure.
I used to, out of all the events that I'd run throughout the year, it was always the grand finals that I looked forward to the most.
Yeah.
And it was always the event where you're like, I'm going to live for this.
Mm.
As a tournament director, we would probably start a bass session at 6 o'clock or 6:30, depending on when first light was.
Yeah.
You'd be up at 5.
Yep.
You'd send the guys off. You'd run across the road. You'd hit the bakery, have something to eat.
Yeah.
You'd be in the boat. You're out on the
That
water.
Colourful bakery. Oof.
You're filming. You come back. You're doing the power setup. You're doing the weigh in. That's done. You guys scatter. You upload the results. You pack down. You go back, and then you've got content that you need. So back
That's
in that day,
it.
we started doing video.
Yeah.
So you're up at 5, and you were finishing work probably sometimes 10 o'clock at night.
Could have been 16 to 18-hour days.
Yeah.
If
Look,
you've never run a tournament, you can't comment
I did.
on what goes into it.
Yeah. No, I was just going to say I actually spent a bit of time with Steve and Nicole there at Ballina for one ABT. I sort of remember with them. And the amount of time that goes in afterward with the content, the filming, the talking, getting everyone's cutaways, like there's a lot involved.
Yeah.
I don't think people really realise that.
Yeah, and that was a fairly common experience.
Yeah.
When we get somebody give us a hand like yourself or Clarence, and you come behind the curtain and you got to see how a tournament.
Yeah, it's an eye opener.
And you're like, oh, it's much easier being an.
Yeah. That's right. I'm happy to pay me $250. You know what I mean? Like, thanks.
I think, look, we're going to skip through the next couple because we've sort of already answered those there previously. Simon's been an absolute legend of a guest and dived into that. But I will just touch on one of them there. How do you see ABT today? Now, I'm not talking about ABT as a company.
Yep.
I'm talking about as a whole, the anglers, the tournaments. Obviously, he's faced a lot of adversity recently as we've talked about COVID and new tournaments, etc. How do you see ABT now, and how do you think, like, are the anglers, because I've got a pretty big, strong opinion on this.
Yep.
How do you feel, are the anglers supporting ABT as the forefront of tournaments. They've
Mm.
been there from the beginning. Do you
Mhm.
think the tournaments are giving back as much that Steve and ABT have given as a whole?
You know, in my time at ABT, catch and release tournament fishing for brim and bass,
Yeah.
it was exciting and new. Customers were, pumped. When I say customers, I mean anglers were excited, and I don't know if there's that same level of zeal from the anglers.
Yeah.
There's been many tournament organisations that have come along and try and take market share from ABT.
Mm-hmm.
There's been lots that have come and go.
Yes.
And Steve has held the course,
Mm.
continues to do it when a lot of other people haven't managed to do it.
Yeah.
I suppose maybe tournament fishing needs a little bit of invigoration or an injection in another way, and I don't know what form that would be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And back in the day we had AFC, which was a
That-
great motivator.
It was like
for
the
tournament anglers to do
golden years, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely,
yeah.
absolutely.
And I've got I've got a very strong opinion on, they say, AFC and like now the fishing world, which I'm not going to dive into because that's a rabbit hole for another time. But my opinion on it is all like the anglers expect too much. Like the anglers want this, they want the wrap car, they want the wrap boat, they want these companies to throw all this money at them. But unfortunately, for these younger anglers, they don't understand. For anglers, although I'm not old, I've been around it a long time. It will and never will be America. The work that Steve puts in is phenomenal, but we don't have the capacity, we don't have the population that the states do, and essentially, we do not have the circulation of money they have. So it's not going to be rocking up to tournament winning $100,000.
Yeah.
And if you're in it for that reason, you're probably not in it for the right
You're not in it
reasons.
for the right ones.
You're doing it because you love it, and if you get a check and you pay your fuel money for the weekend, unreal.
To burst everybody's bubble, there is not money to be made in tournament fishing.
No.
Either as an angler or as a tournament organisation.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to reveal exact figures, but ABT always spent exactly what it made.
Yeah.
It was never about making money.
Mm.
It was about creating a market that would help the industry and help the anglers.
Yes.
And when we say don't make money, Steve puts food on the table for his family because that's what a job's about and that's what a business does. But I don't think people realise Steve doesn't go home overnight and count his money.
No.
Like he doesn't do a Daffy Duck on the bed and count all his money.
Trust me, I saw the bank accounts. I did the budgets. I knew how much money we had come in. I knew how much we had coming out. It was the same number at the end of the day.
Yep.
We spent everything that we had, and we just put it back into the sport, whether it was, trailers, tents, permits, staff. Morgan and I always joke that we would make out like bandits and piss off to Rio. That wasn't
be like our Patreon channel because we're killing it. So
we're up to $36.
There weren't, and there still isn't huge sums of money to be made in tournament angling, and that's for the organisation and also from the anglers.
Yeah.
As an angler, you are fishing for your own money. You are just winning back the prize money that you've already paid. There isn't a queue of businesses that want to drop a $10,000 check on an event.
Yeah.
There may have been to a certain degree 15 years ago.
Yeah.
It certainly isn't now.
Because these things cost money. You don't get your name without paying.
Absolutely.
Can I ask? Them golden years.
Yeah.
And that money that was being thrown around. Was there more money going around for the industry in general back then, or did you guys tap into a market where we could utilise this?
Well, it was really interesting. Now this is pre-social media, so you had your Berkeleys and your Dyers and your Club Marines of the world.
Yep.
They have a marketing budget just like they do now.
Yep.
Where are they going to spend that? Traditionally it was print.
Yep.
We've seen that decline over the years.
Yes.
As businesses such as Berkeley started developing products that were sold and used by tournament anglers, they would then redirect some of their marketing budgets into tournament organizations. Which we would then use to pay for fuel in cars, employ staff, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Then of course social media came along. Marketing departments of these companies would then go,
yes,
we're not going to spend it so much in this way. We'll spend it in other areas,
i.e.
social media. So now tournaments are just competing with other.
That's right.
Other draws and that marketing spend.
Yeah. And look, I'm just going to put it out there. The tournament angler probably it's probably not seen as high value to these companies now as some of these influencers that have come along.
The social, like, and
there's more eyeballs you're getting on YouTube than
Yeah.
you are
like
a tournament write-up or a website post.
Like, for instance, I'll just call him out, like Matty Shaw. Saw him on the Daiwa stand there today. He has a massive following on his socials, right? Him using a Saltiga is going to get more business for Daiwa than them giving old Joe Blow down the road that fishes 6 tournaments a year, $1,000 with the lures.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
And the other thing that digital media, especially social, has that magazine articles and tournaments to a certain degree is that you can measure digitally.
Yep.
If I post this
It's a great
video on
comment.
YouTube,
Yeah.
I can then measure how many people
Yes.
are seeing this.
You know, how many are seeing it, when they're seeing it, how old they
That's
are.
right.
Yeah.
If they're sitting on the toilet and seeing it, you can see everything. Like,
That's right.
literally.
That's right.
And for a business owner,
Oh,
it is game changing.
These businesses need to justify their expenditure.
Yes.
If we give you this, show me what the return is.
Yep.
That's right.
Give me the data. I need the data.
Mhm.
And social media gives you that data.
I won't dive into it because this is like a 3-hour episode in itself what I'm about to bring up. But if you're a young fella out there and you think the blokes that get sponsored just get signed over a check from these companies, it does not happen.
No.
That does not happen. It has never happened. Cash would get exchanged in some very big deals with some high-profile people. But for the average sponsored angler, he might be getting a few packets of plastics cheaper, a few bits and bobs. I'm not going to dive into it because that's sort of confidential stuff for companies. But let me tell you, if you're going to be sponsored, they ain't going to sign your 10 grand check. It's as simple as that.
That's right.
Look, I'm going to move on because I want to wrap things up here. This has been an unreal chat.
It's been
One
great.
thing, just off the back of Steve, I do want to quickly say there's not many people that understand that gentleman wins a lot of tournaments. That gentleman earns a lot of money.
Yep.
And not one piece of that money goes back into Steve's bank account. It goes back into ABT.
Yep.
And he actually told me that the new van got purchased out of all his winnings over the years of ABT.
Yeah.
So kudos to him.
I remember the Brimgrove final that he won at Sydney Harbour. I think it might have been 2008.
Yep.
We did that way in at Darling Harbour.
Yep.
It cost us 10 grand for the permit to pitch 3/10 at Darling Harbour. He won that event. His first prize was $10,000.
Yep.
That paid for that permit.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
It's a lot of money. Absolutely a lot of money.
It's bloody expensive running tournaments, and it would only be getting more expensive.
It is.
Yeah,
mate.
it'd be crazy now,
the everyday
especially
cost
for
of living.
permits and stuff like that. Yeah.
Look, we're going to quickly just touch on these, mate. What's one word of advice? One word of advice for a young bloke, an old fella, whoever it might be, that is passionate about fishing, might not want to fish tournaments, but he wants to have a crack at being a tournament director. What's something you would say to him?
You need to be clearly defined in what your objectives are.
Yep.
I used to have a lot of people say to me when I was at ABT, "Don't you wish you were out there?"
Yeah.
fishing the tournament?" I'm like,
Yeah.
no.
Not in minus 2 degrees.
My job and my focus is to provide the best tournament and the best product I can for the anglers.
Yeah.
So,
and you've got many hats on.
exactly.
Tournament director, you're doing
and
everything.
just because you're a good tournament angler doesn't mean you're going to be a good tournament.
Totally.
You know, they're a different skill set.
Yep.
You want to be clearly defined in what the reasons are for wanting to do it.
Yep.
And ideally, they're not selfish reasons. They're probably a little bit broader. It's less about you and it's more about we in terms of what do you think you can deliver for the industry, the tournament industry, and what can you deliver?
Yeah.
So that's very important. That's far more sustainable.
Yep.
Than going, I'm going to line my pockets doing this.
Yeah.
Because you don't line your pockets.
No.
It's just a job. It's an income.
And money's not always the best motivator when it comes to doing things.
That's right.
And look, mate, to be honest, from the bottom of my heart, you've definitely set a precedent.
Yes.
For anyone moving forward. Like, I know I've hit sticky situations as a tournament director. I did it for 6 years nearly, like full on with the electrics and on and off when Morgo needed a hand, for the pros. But sticky situations, you'd be like, what would Simon do?
Yeah.
What would Simon do in this? First thing you do, he wouldn't panic. He'd stay calm. He'd provide a quality product and get the job done. And then worry about the rest later on, And as we've mentioned throughout this podcast, there's always things that's going to come up when you're babysitting. And essentially, that is what you're doing. I know it's rude in saying it, but you're babysitting a group of grown men.
Yes.
There's going to be dramas. There's going to be dramas, essentially. And you've got their health, like you said. They've got their safety preference.
You are very much in charge of their welfare, and you've got a responsibility to make sure they get home safe.
And that's on and off the water.
Absolutely.
At the campsite, you want everyone to have a good time. But, mate, I think we're going to wrap this up.
Yeah.
I've had an absolute blast. I've wanted to sit down with you for so long
Yes.
now. As a good friend of mine, I know you're a wealth of knowledge, and I think some of what we've said today is definitely going to be well received from the other Pelicans on the channel.
Yeah.
Thank you, mate.
Yep.
14 years doing something, you tend to hone your craft.
Yeah.
Without blowing smoke up my own butt. I think I was a pretty fucking good tournament
Yep.
director.
Mate,
I think I had got it down pretty pat.
Yeah.
Not everybody would like me all the time. And I enjoyed it thoroughly. And, there's a good possibility that I may run tournaments again in the future. When that may be, I don't know.
Yep.
In what form,
Yep.
I don't know either. But that's definitely something that I would like to do again.
100%.
I'd like to say on behalf of, I guess a lot of the anglers out there, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for them 14 years. The professionalism that you've shown through that time is second to none. I think that's, away from, the work that Steve has done, obviously goes a very, very long way. But, I think these other ones that pop up and disappear, they don't have like people like yourself at the forefront.
Yep.
And it's a true testament to yourself. So thank you.
Thank you, mate. My pleasure.
Yeah, and just off the back of that, I think anyone that ever had a bad word to say about you was probably someone that you've had a confrontation with and maybe DQ'd. And they're just bad blood, at the end of the day.
They came off of the wrong end of a decision that I would have made.
Like what I was mentioning before when it maybe cut out, we had a little disagreement about my nav lights. I didn't have my nav lights, and cranky Simon come out, and little Joey quickly put his nav lights on.
Them the rules.
Safety. Safety.
And that's the thing. Why would I be mad at you? You're like, oi, you got to go to the back of the field. You got no nav lights. I had no nav lights.
Yeah.
I found a torch. I snapped the end of my net off. I taped the torch to the end of my net. I had my white light as was instructed.
You're a true bush mechanic, aren't you?
Well, it was simple, Joey. Either get nav lights or sit on the bank until official sunrise.
And that's
choice was yours.
And you give me the choice. You said, hey, you can wait 15 minutes or you can make a nav light now. And what do? I made me nav light. I missed a few spots.
Yeah.
But Simon let me go. And at the end of the day, how can you blame the man? He was just looking after himself and ABT.
Yeah, 100%.
So look, let's wrap this up, mate. From the bottom of our hearts, really appreciate you being on here.
Thank you.
Yet again, thanks to all you legends that are listening. Yet again, it's Two Pelicans Podcast. We're now on Apple, Spotify, and it's on Patreon at the Two Pelicans Podcast. $3 a month, Mick. Less than a can of beer. You can't go wrong. And you can hear the P's and Q's and all the funny stuff.
Yeah, that's right. And if you want to send in a yarn or anything else that you want to discuss, please reach out to our email, twopelicans@gmail.com.
Thanks, legends. We're signing out. Hang around for the next episode 13, because let me tell you, she's going to be a banger. I'm Joey.
I'm Mick.
I'm Simon.
You've listened to the Two Pelicans. Catch us next week.
All right.